Morning, nice Sunday morning or not. Weather's broken a bit, it's not quite so warm out there, is it? So just back from doing the club virtual 5k run. Got to say, didn't enjoy it at all. Anyway, it's a bit far to try and run a bit quicker for, and I'm probably not fit enough for it. But anyway, it's why I thought I'd just do today's vlog. I think, you know, boredom's setting in a bit. People are sort of starting a few new challenges. The club's doing the virtual. We've done 3k, it's 5k, 1k next weekend. That's going to be a laugh, isn't it? And people have been doing marathons, you know, there's been lots of charity running going on. So people are just starting to just push the bodies a little bit. So I thought I'd talk today a little bit about the old hamstring. So hamstring muscle, big muscle, back of the leg down here, okay? So what do we know about the hamstring? The hamstring is a power muscle, okay? It works while you're sort of doing steady running. But it shouldn't give you, it shouldn't be doing lots of stabilising work. Your stabilising work should come from your core, your hamstrings, should come from your core and your glutes. So if your stabilisers aren't working very well and your core's not working very well and your glutes aren't working very well, then your hamstring has to work a little bit harder. So it has to work a little bit harder in the background and work in that stabilising role, which is probably not great for it because it means it's already starting to get a little bit overloaded. Now what the hamstring is very good at, it's giving us power when we want to go a little bit faster. So I'll have sort of used my hamstring a bit today. I mean, I tried to go faster. Doesn't look like I did on paper, but I did try. And you know, I will have used it a bit more. Definitely used my hamstrings and glutes a lot more yesterday because we were pushing soil in a wheelbarrow up the garden. I think that's why I've been so tired today. And sometimes you actually have to think about the other things you've been doing rather than just the training. Interestingly, you know, use Andrew as an example. He's actually ran well today and he's been doing some strength work in the garden. But he's ran with me, he's ran consistently, but he's not really done a lot of fast work. And you know, he's still running as well as he's ran. So, you know, consistency, bit strength work, you know, it's the real key. Anyway, I've sort of moved on a bit there. Hamstrings. So what happens with our hamstrings is, you know, they're working sort of, you know, a little bit in the background, less in the background if your core's working better, and then suddenly we try and run faster. And if the muscles of your glutes and your core aren't working very well, then the hamstrings are already a bit fatigued. So then when you try and ask them to run faster, that's when we start to get this sort of tightness and this overload. So there's two forms of hamstring injury. We've got an acute hamstring injury where, you know, you're running fast, you know, generally sprinting, ping, you know, you feel like you've been shot in the back of the leg, and your hamstring is torn, okay? And that's your classic sprinter's injury where, you know, you have to rest, ice, compress, elevate. But we're probably not talking about those quite so much with these. We're probably talking about more micro tears where the hamstring's a little bit overloaded, we've stressed it a bit more than it should do, and you've just developed these smaller tears within the muscle. Or the hamstring's just got very tight because it's worked harder than it should do. What I'm not talking about here is hamstring tendon problems. So if you've got a pain where the hamstring inserts from your sit bone or where it sort of goes down the back, either the inside or the outside of the knee, then that's more of a tendon problem. So a tendon is where a muscle inserts into the bone. So I'm not really talking about the tendon problems. And in fact, if you've got a tendon issue, then you don't stretch, you load, okay? And you know, if it's a real sort of pain in the bum, don't keep overstretching it because it won't like that. Actually, it prefer to load it. However, if you've got tightness within the muscle belly of the hamstring, then that's okay. You know, to start doing a little bit of work. But again, why have I got that? What have I been doing? Have I been doing more of something? Have I run faster? You know, am I fatigued? What's going on with my core? Have I neglected doing any of my core exercises? Quite likely. Do I need to go back and get my glutes firing again? So just a reminder, think about why the hamstrings are normally a victim because because they're overworking and because the the core isn't working as well as it should be. Or your pelvis can be a little bit rotated. You can be tight on one side on the hip flexors, so the pelvis is just a little bit pulled out of line. And there's just a little bit of torsion going on in there, and it's like okay, that's going to put if you think the pelvis can just twist a little bit, just from the muscle, different muscle pulls around there, then that's another massive cause. So you can actually have a little look at that, and if you I don't think I've checked this. Let's check. So probably just need to do that a bit. Here we go. If you lie down, you can actually feel your pelvis and just think, is it the same on both sides? If I sort of just rotate my back around one way and the other way, is it the same? What does it feel like? And then you can start to sort of have a little feel, and just sort of think, right, what feels tight? And just have a little assess around the back and back and pelvis yourself. You're not going to do any harm. Just having a feel, and then standing on one leg, can you do that? Is the pelvis tipping? Is it staying in the right place? Are the glutes working? That's a nice little test. And then go to your one leg bridge. We've done this loads and loads of times. Do your pelvic tilt, lift up. Okay, oh crikey, my glute's not working, so my hamstring's overworking. Yeah. And if you do this and you lift up and you hold it there and you lift one leg and that hamstring suddenly is going mental, then that glute's not going to be doing the job and it's not working. So you need to go back and get the glute firing just to take the stress off the hamstring. Okay, so there are lots of causes. What do we do if it's a bit tight? Start off with your lower back, do some of the lower back rotations. We've gone through those loads. Do a little bit of pelvic tilt like we've just shown you, and then you can get your foam roller. So I would start by just foam rollering into the glutes a little bit, okay? And I think that's quite important because obviously it's all an integrated muscle, and if we want the extensors to work, we want the glute to fire and the hamstring, we want them to work together. Okay, so and do the other side of the glute. Okay, then we can come down into our hamstrings, and you can't see the foam roller there, can you? Sit on the foam roller and we can just go forwards and backwards. There we go. And when you get a tight spot, just hold it. You can have a little bit of bias to the outside, you can have a little bit of bias to the inside. Okay, and just release that a little bit. There we go. I'll just do the other leg a little bit too, otherwise I'll be wonky. There we go. Okay, and then we look at how do we stretch the hamstrings. So I think it's worth thinking about the adductors as well, because there's a lot of connection between the medial hamstrings and the adductors. They all work together, do a lot of the similar work. So just have your feet together and just let those knees fall out. Okay, so then we can put legs apart and just start going forwards a little bit. Oh, I am so tight at the moment. Okay, and you'll feel it into medial hamstrings and the adductors. Now the thing to remember about the hamstrings is there's three main parts of the hamstring, and it's not just on the middle of the leg. You've got two lots down the inside and you've got one lot down the outside. Okay, so that's why when we do our hamstring stretches, we sort of bend the leg around a little bit. Oh, cramp in my ribs. Okay, I told you I'd worked hard on that 5k, didn't enjoy it. Okay, then go across and just hold it on one side. And then, oh goodness me. I'm playing this one back myself. There's going to be so much moaning and groaning. Right, okay. So then, hurdle. Start going into the sort of a little bit of sort of rotation. So you can bring one leg up like that. That's it. And stretch forward. Oh. 200, I couldn't run fast today, isn't it? Can't even reach my toes. That's rubbish for me. Okay, and then the other leg. Oh, goodness me. Okay, and then some people struggle to get into this position. I find I need to get into this position to stretch my hamstrings a little bit further, and then I can sort of go down and just hold that stretch. Try not to put your head down. If you put your head down, you get that nervy stretch as well, which you don't really want. Good. And then the other side. We did stretch our hamstrings a little bit at the park this morning. Park bench is normally quite good for that. So, you know, you can put your leg up on something and you can go down, and then you can add a little bit of rotation to get the inner hamstrings a little bit more as well. So that's always quite nice. And then you can just go back just across. Whoa, chair's moving on me. That's not going to help, is it? That way. Okay. So we'll get that, and then we'll get the inner hamstrings. Okay. So that's just loosened up those hamstrings a little bit. Okay. And I think, you know, if you have had a little bit of a tight hamstring, think about getting that core working, and thinking about just avoiding things that might stress your hamstring a little bit. It's going to have to work harder if you run faster, it's going to have to work harder if you run up hills, and it's going to have to work harder if you're cycling and you're really working those gears, okay? So if you have got a grumbly hamstring, stay on the flat, go a little bit steadier, and if you're going on your bike, spin rather than, you know, really push the heavy gears. So a little bit of hamstring stuff for you. Hope that helps.